Hi, I'm Jordan Stone with The Good Ride, and it really is never summer in Oregon. We are just finishing up with another 3 feet of powder, and it's been wonderful. Today, I am going to be talking about Never Summer's Infinity. I rode this board in sequence with pretty much their entire women's line. This is the third board in that sequence that I rode, directly following the Proto, which is a true twin. This one is the first just slightly directional of the boards that I got on, and actually it was my favorite. So pros of the Infinity: this board was the most stable of the boards that I got on in sequence between the Breezy Rider, the Proto, and then this being the third. It was the most stable out of those three. It had a phenomenal edge hold, as does a lot of Never Summer boards. This one held on, locked in, really made me feel comfortable when on edge. Also, because of sort of the stiffness and the profile of this, that triple camber, which impacted me on the other boards, was less noticeable. So that was a huge pro for me. Cons: because of the stiffness and that increase in stiffness, this was a little bit harder to control through trees. I ended up having to throw my turns quite a bit, which is not a great feeling when you really need response. It also has very little torsional flex. So if you're someone who likes to gas pedal and you find a lot of control in that gas pedal, this board doesn't respond very well to that, but the stiffness lends itself to other positive things. Here at The Good Ride, we get all of our boards from the distributors, but we are not paid to review these. These are honest, subjective reviews from normal, average people. This is all made possible by our sponsors, thanks to Blower out of Big Bear. Blower has been around selling snowboards almost as long as I've been on this planet. So I really appreciate any company that is going to be core, true to the bone when it comes to snowboarding. They have been supporting snowboarders longer than most resorts have been supporting snowboarders, so they are a great fit for us. So please go out there, support them. They have a wonderful online shop and in-store brick and mortar shop. I rode this board with a directional stance of positive 18 and negative 9 with a stance width of 19 inches. This is a 151. I rode it with my Trilogy bindings and my Dialogue boots. They're men's size 7, so equates to about a women's size 8. I got a chance to ride this on a variety of conditions, actually the perfect review day. Perfect groomed with sight tracked out and then off-piste. It was tracked out powder with pockets of snow, 4 to 6 inches deep all the way up to some 8 to 10 inches pockets. So it was really great to be able to see how it rode on groomed, on maintained snow, and then off-piste on unmaintained snow. So the 151 is recommended for a weight range of about 120 to 150. I'm on the lower end of that weight range, but this is my favorite size, is between a 148 and a 152, all the way up to a 153 depending on the board. I really enjoyed it. It felt like it fit well. They do also have a height range for their boards between 5'4" and 5'8". I think that's preference more than anything. The waist width on this is 23/8. This accommodates about a size 9. So interesting thing with this sizing, and what I actually found with the Never Summer boards that jumped above the 148, was that to get my desired stance width of 19 inches, and I usually like to sit between 19 and a half, I actually had to be on the most inner inserts. Now this was problematic because the closer in I am, the further away I am from the camber profile. Please take that into account when sizing your board. A 48 on this board would probably allow you to be a little bit more centered in those inserts. So the Infinity is the first board that actually features a directional shape. It is a directional twin shape, so what this means is that the tip and tail are actually symmetrical. However, it is set back slightly. This is actually set back 1.5 inches at inserts. So new to 2026, all of the women's line is going to have their triple camber profile. What this is characterized is actually by 3 camber profiles in the nose, in the middle of the board, and in the tail. And in between those is a transition area that actually has a rocker. So this actually looks a little bit like this across the whole board. Now compared to the 2 boards I rode prior to this, the Proto and the Breezy Rider, this board actually felt the most stable. It felt the most grounded. It felt the least amount of squirreliness that I had experienced as a result of that camber profile. It was more stable skating to the lift and off the lift, as well as traversing in long flat base conditions. It does feel like more board compared to the other two. However, it doesn't necessarily feel stiffer. It still feels easy enough to control, just a different experience than the asymmetrical and the true twin. For this reason, I recommend this board for, advanced beginner all the way up to expert, looking for a more all-mountain one-board quiver. Edge hold is where Never Summer really shines. When this locks in, it locks in to the very last minute, and it is so secure. It has power grip progressive side cut, where the radius depth actually increases as you move out from the center. That edge hold would perform well in icy conditions. Even though I didn't get it in icy conditions, I'm pretty confident this thing would hold on. Never Summer Infinity here, flex, slightly stiffer than the Breezy Rider here. They put it as a 5 on the flex scale. Is directional, so you're gonna see a little bit of kind of a soft flex in the tail there. Flip this around. A little stiffer in the nose, but you're gonna have more surface area there through the middle of the board and through that triple camber. Still pretty soft. Definitely gonna say that this is not the stiffest board, and okay rebound as well. Just like any of the triple camber, your biggest proponent is going to be trying to move through that camber profile that is outside of the inserts. So the Infinity was the first directional board, or Setback directional board, that I got on in the lineup. Because I was able to be set back slightly on this board, it actually handled uneven snow really well. Couple that with the stiffer makeup of the board, and it actually was a really enjoyable ride off-piste. I was able to maintain my speed in a variety of conditions, even bumped out and in pockets of snow, and maintain control during the entire experience. So I was definitely looking forward to trying a board that felt a little bit more stable under feet and seeing how it did on speed, especially compared to the twins that felt a little bit uneasy and I never really felt comfortable with speed. This one did a great job with speed. Whether it was the stiffness or the fact that I really didn't feel that insecurity from the camber, I was able to kind of get this thing going and to point it downhill and sort of bend my knees into the hill and charge without a lot of insecurity. Once I did get into some steeper terrain, I started to overpower the board a little bit. That stiffness is a step up from its twin counterparts, but it's not the stiffest board in the line. That they're saving down for the Cirrus, which definitely is going to be a competitor for stiff charger. The Never Summer Infinity is equipped with a sintered base. Ooh, that's really pretty actually. As is with any sintered base, regular waxing is always going to improve the performance of the board. Now we get these boards as factory set. I try to ride the boards factory to see how it feels. For you, if you just took it out and didn't have access to all the tuning equipment, I did find that with this board, compared to factory setting and with a wax, it had a pretty good base glide. It didn't stick, it didn't feel like it was holding at all in the terrain and the conditions that I was in. However, with that regular waxing and condition-specific waxing, this did perform a little bit better. So keep in mind when I rode these boards, I did them in consecutive order from our most soft freestyle all the way up to the most aggressive directional board. This was the third board in the line that I had. And compared to the two boards that I've ridden before, the Proto and the Breezy Rider, this was a completely different turning experience. If the Breezy Rider was Kung Fu, fast, sharp, this was Tai Chi. It had a much slower reaction. That coupled with a little bit stiffer and a kind of a lack of torsional flex, the initiation and departure of this was just slowed down. Had those turning radiuses a little bit longer, but I could still kind of get it to go quicker, but it wanted to point more downhill versus the Breezy Rider and the Proto that just wanted to be quick underfoot. I can only contribute this to that stiffer torsional flex, stiffer profile, and the fact that the weight is set back slightly. Now, interestingly, that slow reaction speed of this board actually made the initiation and departure from the turns much smoother. I had less of a problem with trying to overpower the board's need to control itself, and I was able to be the driver on this board. That made the turning experience much more enjoyable. However, you take slow reaction speed and you put it in a tree setting where you need quick reaction speed, and it can be a little bit of a panic. I ended up having to swing this board around quite a bit because I could not rely on a quick radius turn. I was able to get this in powder conditions, and honestly, I was set back. Actually, you need to see this because this is crazy. So here is the most internal insert on that front foot. I was set here and I was set here to have about a 19-inch. This is where I rode the powder. It performed pretty well in that stance. If I wanted to set this back, it would only increase my stance width. And if I actually took this all the way back to this back, it increases your stance width all the way up to 21.5. Now, interestingly, compared to the Proto, which I rode before, that has 2.25 inches of setback, when you put it in the powder pack, you set this all the way back at the uncomfortable width of 21.5, and you're only going to get 1.875, so actually less snows than you would with the Proto. Makes this sort of an interesting thing. Do I think it's a powder board? It can be. I would give this sort of an okay in powder conditions, okay in uneven conditions, but if you really want a powder specific board, get something that is already set back and directional. This board does have a twin shape with just a setback stance. When I took this to switch, it actually rode like a twin. It felt very comfortable. Unlike some directional boards that tend to want to flip back around, this felt very centered. It rode centered and felt comfortable in switch riding. Now, would I call this a freestyle board? No, definitely not when compared to the Breezy Rider and the Proto, which are true twins and can give you a more freestyle setting. So overall, the Infinity was actually my favorite board that I got on in the lineup. It felt the most stable underfoot. It is slower to react to turns, but easier to control in open terrain. However, when I did get this into trees, it started to feel like a little bit of a bigger board. I had a harder time controlling and getting precision turns that I needed, and my quick turning that I felt in the open terrain turned into throwing the boards in sort of desperation to make sure that I can control myself. Consider sizing down if you're looking for a tree riding board, or if you're looking for a stance with narrower than 19 inches, because again, this board will only allow 19 inches at its narrowest. Please support us by clicking the likes, commenting, and if you need advice, follow the link. I am happy to help in any way I possibly can.